What's up, guys, and welcome back to the 5th episode of Three Gyms Talk Hockey. I'm your host, Solan Mijas, alongside Mike Cardoza and Matt Milko. We have a good show set up over here. It's currently Wednesday, March 19th. So, a lot to talk about. Both wildcard races in the East and West are heating up. I mean, we're heading towards the tail end of the NHL regular season. Playoffs are starting in less than a month. So, a lot of exciting stuff going on. To get right into the East, let's talk about the wild card situation over here. I mean, the Rangers found themselves in a playoff spot for the first time in quite some time last week, and now we see a team like Montreal kind of squeezing in and having their bid in the second wild card spot. So there's a lot of moving parts. I mean, we've said it time and time again how competitive and how much of a struggle this whole wild card race is going to be in the East, not as much as like in the West, but in the East we've known what we were going to see, and we're seeing it right now. I mean, right now we have the Senators with 77 points in the first wild card spot. We have the Canadiens with 73 points in the second wild card spot, and then right on Montreal's tail you have the Rangers, the Islanders, the Blue Jackets. The Rangers have 72 points. The Islanders, Blue Jackets, and Red Wings have 70. And then the Bruins are right behind them with 69. So this race is going to come right down to the wire. This is going to be one of those years where I feel like we're going to see the final playoff seedings come in after Game 82 of the regular season. And I don't think that there's really that much more exciting, something that much more exciting that could happen come the end of the regular season. So let's talk a little bit about that. I think the Canadiens have been on a bit of a hot streak right now. I mean, they've won their last 2 games, but they're 7-1-2 in their last 10. Mm-hmm. And I just want to dig right into Lane Hutson. How incredible he is. I mean, he's a rookie on a team that hasn't really been looked at as very skillful, yet he's making it happen. He's a defenseman. He's a rookie. He's the first rookie to 50 points, and he's absolutely tearing it up. Last night? He had an incredible goal against the Ottawa Senators. And he just showed his poise and his confidence with the puck, which you don't see very often out of young players, let alone defensemen. So I kind of want to get into that a little bit and get your guys' thoughts on the Canadiens, but more specifically Lane Hutson and kind of what he's been able to do so far.
Well, obviously, I think he's been a huge boost offensively for them with just the amount of assists he's been able to produce. He's such an explosive player off the jump. I mean, you see his head fakes, you see the way he handles the puck, and he's able to just find the guys who are open. He's able to get to the net, get pucks to the net. So he's been great on their offensive end. Defensively, I haven't been paying too much attention to him just because I haven't really been watching the Canadiens. But, I mean, when we're talking about the wild card race, right, like there's no clear-cut team that I see in this wild card race that I'm like, they're definitely going to make the playoffs. All these teams are so close in contention, and it's all about what team can get hot at the right time and how hot they stay. And right now, the Canadiens are extremely hot, and they have their best players playing at their best. So as long as they can continue to play behind each other and keep winning games, I mean, they have a very, very real chance of making the playoffs, especially for a team that I don't think had playoff expectations coming into the season. They're still kind of in a rebuild, but they have so many young superstar pieces that are really starting to shine, and it's really showing here at the end of the season when it matters most.
Yeah, what I want to say, before I even talk about the Canadiens and Lane Hutson, who's been amazing, this part of the season is the best part of the season. I love this part where teams are fighting to get every game matters. Every week we come on this podcast talking about a new team in the wild card. Like last week it was the Rangers, the week before that was Columbus. Every single week we're gonna have a new team in the wild card, and just the level of play has been ramped up. If even just watching it, you could tell the last couple weeks teams are getting desperate to get in this wild card. Now talking about the Canadiens and Lane Hutson, who's been unreal, like a massive part of their decor, providing so much offense. The Montreal Canadiens have a lot of young pieces. They're going to be scary for a little bit, I think. And if they make the playoffs this year, that just fast tracks them into next year. And if I was Canadian fans, I would be very excited of what I've seen this year. If we make the playoffs or if they don't make the playoffs, I would be excited with Hudson going crazy, Slavkovsky having a great year. They still have Caulfield, who's one of my favorite players in the NHL right now.
The little guy, love that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then on top of it, a guy that I feel like is overlooked a little bit just because of other guys surrounding him, which is a good thing, Patrick Laine.
Yeah.
I mean, he came back from his injury. He was red hot. He's obviously slowed down a little bit, but I mean, you got a guy like Josh Anderson is a middle six, bottom six player, but you got a third line of Josh Anderson and Brendan Gallagher. Like that's scary. So it's like even though they're a wild card team, they have a lot of potential to do damage if they play their cards right.
Yeah.
And right now, as of late, they have been. They're getting hot at the right time. I think Sam Montembeault is an incredible goalie. But then Jacob Dobes is another very reliable goalie. So having him as a backup, you got two solid goalies, obviously two goalies that are still trying to prove themselves, but that only gives them more of a reason to kind of dig deep and find something and show what they're capable of. So more or less, I think that the Montreal Canadiens have a realistic shot of making the playoffs. And obviously, if it's not in a wildcard spot, they're not making it. But the race is so tight right now. And like we said, this is the best time of year just for this reason. I remember a number of years ago, I don't remember the exact season, but it came down to game 82 to know if the Islanders were making the playoffs or not. They ended up missing the playoffs by a singular point. And I remember, all right, yeah, that sucked. But at the end of the day, that was just a fun looking back at it. It's like that's what you expect. An 82 game season comes down to the wire, comes down to game 82, and I feel like a lot of people overlook it when their team's kind of clear cut in the playoffs. But when your team's in the hunt, it just builds an excitement.
I think I know exactly what you're talking about. That year when it was the Islanders and then the Penguins end up losing a big game that got the Panthers into the wild card spot. And
that's
then
exactly
the Panthers ended up beating the Bruins after that was the Bruins' historic regular season year.
No, that was a couple years before that.
Was a year before that.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, it was a little
But
bit
there was an
before that.
impact like that for that Bruins run or
the year
Panthers run.
Yeah, it was with the Panthers and the Penguins. You're correct about that.
I think the Blackhawks won against the Penguins.
No, that was more recent.
No, that was that year. I'm pretty sure.
This was before the Bruins had their historic year.
Oh, I was talking about that year.
Yeah,
specifically.
that year specifically. Yeah, you're right. But I mean, that's just the fun of the narrowing it down to playoff hockey. And right now, all three of our teams, the Islanders, Rangers, and Bruins, they all are kind of in that stretch right now where if you get red hot at the right time and one or two teams goes cold, you have a chance to just jump in there.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what's happened with Montreal, which is exactly what happened with the Rangers. The Rangers got hot, and boom, they're right back in the race.
I also do want to chime in here. Both Ottawa and Montreal, who maintain or have these two wildcard spots, only have 67 games played, while the Rangers, who are a point behind the Canadiens, have 2 games ahead of them. So they've played 69 games. Obviously, the Islanders and Blue Jackets both have 67 games, but they have the most games left, besides Buffalo, who isn't in the hunt for these playoff implications. So it gives them a little bit of leeway. Again, it's so close that nothing is going to be confirmed, and obviously these teams are going to be going down to the wire. And I mean, since the Four Nations has started, it's basically been playoff mode for all 5 or 6 of these teams in the hunt.
Yeah, and I mean, you're completely right. I feel like, obviously, the games in hand or the games played situation, it does play a role. I mean, you got an 82-game season. At the end of the day, everyone's playing 82 games. But the goal is to keep winning, and then if you have games in hand, you almost use that as leverage. Boom, now you have control of your own destiny. You're not hoping that other teams win or lose or whatever the case might be. So that's a good point, just in the sense where literally, other than Buffalo has the least amount of games played, but they're so far out of the hunt that I don't really think anyone's expecting them to do anything. But we're going from the second wild card to the best team in the East right now, in the Washington Capitals. I kind of want to touch up on them. Obviously, we were just talking about Lane Hudson. Cole Hudson, Lane's brother, is a Washington Capitals prospect. He just won the Hockey East Rookie of the Year at Boston University, while another Capitals prospect Ryan Leonard just won Hockey East Player of the Year, along with a few other awards. So the Capitals, aside from the fact that they're looking tremendous this year, as we've mentioned time and time again, their prospects are also really giving them something to look forward to in the future. But specific to this year, Logan Thompson has been incredible. We knew that from the Team Canada snub to how Vegas let him go and stuck with Aiden Hill. Looking back, we're all like, oh, damn, they should have held on to Logan Thompson. He's the first goalie in, I want to say, NHL history that has 30 wins in a season and has less than 5 regulation losses. His record right now is 34-5, which is honestly, I mean, impressive one way or another. But then you look at the sheer dominance that the Capitals have had this year, and through 68 games, they have 45 wins, 15 losses, 8 overtime losses for 98 points. The only team that's up their alley right now in terms of being ahead of them in the standings is the Winnipeg Jets, and they're in the West. So East-West competition doesn't really make a difference. That's more or less for the President's Trophy. But that's another team that we've mentioned before. We've spoken about. They surprised everyone. They were I think that they're the Vancouver of last year. And no one really expected Vancouver to do much last year. They made a run this year. They're not that good. And now everyone's kind of looking at them like, oh man, what happened? It's like, well, they weren't great in the first place. But then Washington, I feel like, has some fire in their butt because of players like Alex Ovechkin and what he's pretty much attempting to do right now, which he will get to at one point or another. Kind of on that topic, the Great Chase, 8 goals away. We are narrowing it down. We have, let's see, they've played 68 games.
14 games left.
You have 14 games left.
To score 8.
Score 8. I feel like this has been a hot topic on the podcast, but I feel like while it's happening, you got to ask, do you guys think it happens this year?
It's going to be really close. I think if he can't do it, it will be anywhere from 1 to 3 goal margin that he doesn't hit it. But we're talking about Alex Ovechkin here. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind he could go out and score a hat trick tomorrow if he's playing, So, but I also do want to talk about the Capitals and how good they've been playing this year. Everything is just kind of gelling for this team, right? They didn't have the expectations of being, they might have had expectations to make the playoffs, but no one had expectations that they would lead the Metro and
the Eastern Conference as a whole.
And just be in such a dominant fashion, right? Like their goaltending chemistry is really good. I would almost compare it to the Bruins' Omar Swayman a few years ago, maybe a little less of a caliber just because Lindgren isn't playing as well, but their goalies are playing great. You have Tom Wilson scoring his first 30-goal season. Protas is being a standout rookie. And then Jacob Chychrun, I think he's having a great year. Someone who came from Ottawa, not having a season that he wanted to. And then I feel like he was kind of under the radar in free agency, or maybe he got traded. He was kind of, I feel like that went under the radar, and he's having a great season. And then again, back to the prospects. If they pull Ryan Leonard up out of BC when that season's over and you stick him in that lineup, let's see. If they play the Canadian, if you look at the playoffs and how it would rank right now, and they played the Canadians first round, I don't know if that's a fair fight.
That's the thing, though. It's like, I agree, but I also disagree, because you have a team like the Caps where it's like, I don't feel like they have Stanley Cup contention kind of written all over them, if that makes sense. Like, all right, like, yeah, they're on top of the standings right now, but playoff hockey and regular season hockey are two different things. They're two different beasts. You can't compare the two. If, let's just say, the Capitals find themselves on a little dry spell the last 10 games of the season, and the Canadians find themselves getting hot, and boom, they enter the wild card spot, I feel like the hot team's going to be, and obviously they're going to have the advantage, but I don't know. I could see the Caps having a first round meltdown.
I agree with what you're saying. Like, when you look at this Caps team, you don't think, oh, this team is going to win it all. But
Yeah.
I think through the way they play, Spencer Carberry, the coach, I think they play the right way. They play the regular season like it's the playoffs. Like, you look at their team, Alexei Protas, I was looking at stats before. He's leading the league in plus 43. No one has heard of this guy before this year. He's playing first-line minutes with the Caps and probably going to get a bag next contract if he continues to play like this. But it's just the Capitals coming up with these players that a lot of people think are washed or out of their prime and like just reinventing them as players. Pierre-Luc Dubois got traded out of LA for a bag of chips just to get out of his salary, and now he's playing first-line minutes, almost point per game. I think the Capitals have done a really good job. I think Spencer Carberry is easily going to win head coach of the year. And, like, I agree with what you're saying, and the Capitals, when you don't think they have the star power to win it all, but I think they're coached the right way, and if they get hot, which is it's all about, is I think they can make a run at the Stanley Cup.
Another thing I just want to chime in here about is I think that their roster up and down, like they don't have all the superstars. They're not like a team like Dallas where you're going to look at their roster and you could put their top 9 all on the first power play unit, but they have like the physical strong assets. They have veteran leadership. Reminder, they still have TJ Oshie, who's not playing. Veteran leadership. Tom Wilson, he's a guy who will grind it up.
I mean, even a guy like Nicholas Backstrom is still around the team, which is huge.
You got John Carlson. You guys, you have so many guys on that team with Stanley Cup experience. Even Logan Thompson.
Yeah, with Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I think it's just the way this team is meshed right now, and I mean, they're still a very hot team. Even if they run into the Canadians who are hot, like. I think their roster is more constructed with the veterans and the Stanley Cup leadership that they have over a team like the Canadians who are so young. I think it would be good for the Canadians to make it just so the young guys have some playoff experience. I personally don't see an upset like that happening. But then again, it's playoff hockey, so really anything can happen.
I was going to say there's one specific playoff series that made me think otherwise, and I'll give you a hint.
Let's not talk about it.
Yeah, you weren't a really big fan of that one, but no, yeah. Speaking of teams getting hot, though, the Carolina Hurricanes, another team in the Metro, absolutely buzzing right now. They're on a 7-game win streak. They're just steamrolling teams, and that's kind of what you got to do at this point of the season. It goes back to teams getting hot. Right now, they're pulling away from the Devils, which right now for Carolina, they're not catching up to Washington for that first Metro spot. So right now, second place for Carolina is as good as you're going to get, and second place also means home ice advantage. So there's no complaints there.
Yeah.
I think right now Carolina's getting hot. New Jersey's not playing their best hockey. So if they could just create a little bit of separation between themselves and the Devils, home ice advantage is all you need. Unless you play Washington, which could be very likely in the following round, you have a chance at home ice again. But then again, you focus on one thing at a time. You get home ice for the first round of the playoffs, and you take it from there. Because, once again, there's no guarantee you even get out of the first round. But they're kind of creating a little bit of a separation. They've played 2 less games than the Devils. They're up 6 points on them. So Carolina's creating a bit of a gap there, which I think obviously they like. But then it goes back to what Dozer, you were saying about coaching. Rod Brind'Amour is a very this is what I want, this is how I want it kind of coach. Hence why I don't think it worked out for Mikko Rantanen there. He just didn't really fit the scheme. Aside from the fact that he didn't really want to play there, you could tell that it was a different style of play for him. But long term, Rod Brind'Amour is gonna go down as one of the better coaches. I believe if he continues what he's doing now, he's gonna go down as one of the better coaches of all time. Very well respected. So they play the game the right way. Rod Brind'Amour knows what it takes as a player. He captained the Hurricanes to the Stanley Cup himself. So that might have been almost 20 years ago, but regardless, you know what it takes. When you know what it takes, you don't forget. So the Hurricanes are another team to be really aware of. And as we've noted, during their 7-game win streak, they've beaten teams like the Jets, the best team in the West, the only team that's competing with the Capitals right now for a better record in the league. Tampa, Detroit. All right, Detroit's not as hot right now, but
Tampa's been on a little bit of a cooler too.
But Tampa's another team that's top 3 in their division.
Yep.
So those are big games for both sides. Obviously, the Hurricanes winning, that helps them incredibly. But then the Lightning losing, that loses some leverage. So
yeah, I mean, I think the Hurricanes are in a perfect spot right now. I don't think there is a chance. There is a world where I see it, but I don't think there's a chance that they get the first spot in the Metro. But if I was a Hurricane fan, I think the second spot in the Metro is perfect for them right now. Devils are slowing down. They're still going to make the playoffs, I think, because there's not many Metro teams competing with them. So Rangers and Jackets are 10 points behind them.
Yep.
yeah,
The Devils lost Jack Hughes out for the season, Dougie Hamilton out for the season. If I was the Hurricanes, I would be sitting pretty, keep winning games as they're hot right now. Get their mojo back after all the trade deadline nonsense that happened, which I feel like they're closer now than they were before with Rantanen.
mm-hmm.
So they've been playing well. If I was keep playing well and hope to play New Jersey at home and then see what they're going. Also, what I would like to note is I think other than the Panthers right now, I think we all think the Panthers are still going to be the team favorited to come out of the East. I think my pick right now would be the Hurricanes after the Panthers. I think they're hot. They got playoff experience. I know they haven't done it. They've been the chokers of the East as of late, but I think they could do it.
Very, very interesting with that pick. So with the Hurricanes, obviously that big trade they made, I think a lot of people's expectations and even their Stanley Cup odds significantly dropped, just losing top 15 player in the league, obviously grabbing some key assets there. And it's also important to note that I think around the league, players have spoke on how difficult it is to play in that Carolina playoff atmosphere. It's a very hostile environment, if you want to say. I know that place looks electric every year. It looks so fun to be there. So again, like Solon said, having that home ice advantage in that second seed, especially against a beat-up Devils team who's kind of on a downward trend, puts them, just like you said, in the perfect spot. They have to just keep muscling through the season, stay healthy, and then see it through in the playoffs. I know they also have a lot of veteran leadership and playoff experience on that team, so their ability to keep winning games and stay hot will obviously be key. But I do think that's a very interesting pick that you have them coming out of the East.
I still think the Panthers are, but if it's not the Panthers, I would take the Hurricanes.
My sneaky pick is still the Lightning. I love the Lightning.
See, that's the thing, though. It's I want a team from anywhere but Florida to come out of the East for the first time in 5 years.
It can happen.
I could see it being Florida. I think it's gonna be Florida. I mean, imagine Tampa goes on 3 straight back-to-back finals. Then Florida does the same exact thing. It's right now Florida's running hockey.
Yeah.
And I could see either the Panthers or the Lightning coming out of the East. But like you said, there was just I could also see the Hurricanes. They've been right on the verge of success for how many years, and it's just a matter of yeah. Literally.
I mean,
it's the same thing with the team like the Dallas Stars out west. It's just a matter of getting over that small hump and doing it. It's like a team like the Hurricanes. They're right there. They're right on the edge. They've been on the edge. You don't have to be the best team or number one team in the standings to have success. I mean, look at when Alex Ovechkin won his cup in 2018. The 2 prior years in 2016 and 2017, the Capitals were President's Trophy winners, best team in the league, back-to-back years. Bounced in the second round. They don't win the President's Trophy in 2018. They get over that second round hump. Walk through the Lightning, beat Vegas.
I mean, all 3 of these teams have been buyers at the deadline for the past few years as well. So they're all in that championship window right now, and yeah, I mean it's just going to be a tight race. I could very well see a lot of these series going to game 7s, if not every series.
And what's the best 2 words when it comes to playoff hockey?
Game 7.
Yup, that's exactly what it is. And then, I mean, steering a little bit away from the playoff talk. Obviously, this has to do with playoff contention, but the Islanders have had a solid last 2 games. They were down 2-0 in back-to-back games going into the third period, ended up having 2 straight four-goal third periods. Once again, it's about getting hot, and right now the Islanders are looking good. They're playing good hockey. I mean, they're holding their own through 40, but they're doing something that they haven't been able to do very frequently this year. Even last year they struggled to, and that's close out games. So I feel like, okay, we might be nearing game 70 of this season, but at some point you gotta figure it out and learn how to close out games, learn how to rally back. And it feels like the Islanders are doing just that right now, and there's no better time to do it. As we've said, the playoff race is so close right now. The Islanders sit 2 points behind the Rangers. They sit 3 points behind the second wildcard spot. And it's literally anyone's game right now. So you look at Sorokin. Sorokin's been playing really good hockey. The Islanders' defense have been clicking. The forwards, they've been getting scoring from all 4 lines. So you look at it, and the Islanders are they kind of remind me right now of a team like Calgary, in the sense where they're right there. They're obviously missing a few key pieces to be considered a contender or go into the playoffs confidently in terms of making a deep run. But they remind me of the Hurricanes, where they're hot, they're cold, they'll go on streaks, but then they'll slow down. So I feel like you have a lot of teams like that really just get into the playoffs, and it's anyone's game.
Yeah, I kind of want to pick your brain about that, actually. Being an Islanders fan, with the way you were at the deadline, obviously selling pieces, would you rather the team win and barely make the playoffs, or get stuck right under the wild card spot? Or would you rather just prefer your team to kind of tank off the rest of the season and secure potentially a top 10 draft pick?
See, that's...
Because as a Bruins fan, I at this point in the season have given up. I kind of want to just secure like a top 8 pick at least, so we can move forward for the future pieces. But I kind of want to see what your thought process is.
Yeah, no, I mean, looking at the standings, it's really weird this year, because a lot of teams have a chance to make the playoffs, but the same teams also have a chance to get a top 10 pick in this year's draft. We were kind of talking a little bit prior to the pod how this draft class, yes, it's very skilled, but there's no consensus number 1. There's no Macklin Celebrini, there's no Connor Bedard, there's no Connor McDavid. So you kind of look at it and it's like, all right, whoever gets the first pick, it depends on what they need, and that's what they're going to go and get. With that being said, in terms of the Islanders, right now they're right there. And all it takes is be one of the 8 teams in your conference, obviously, be one of the 8 teams in the playoffs, and you have a chance to win. I'm a firm believer of that, but I also don't think that the Islanders could compete against the best teams in the Eastern Conference. When the deadline happened, knowing what we know now, I would say secure that top 10 pick, get a good, solid young player, whether he's in the NHL next year or not, whether he plays another year, juniors, or whatever the case might be, depending on who they draft. Mm-hmm. I would have no problem with them missing the playoffs, getting that top 10 pick, and moving forward. They need to get younger. They need to get better prospects. But at the same time, I also know how Lou Lamoriello is and how Patrick Waugh runs his locker room. And it's not going to be let's toss a few games, let's secure a good draft pick. It's going to be, let's fight till game 82, see if we can make it in the playoffs. Because once you're in the playoffs, it goes back to it's anyone's game. So if it was me, I wouldn't mind the Islanders dropping a few games, getting a top 10 pick, mm-hmm. getting another solid young guy. Right now you have Eisman, you have Callum Ritchie. Go ahead, bring in the third guy. Now that's going to be your future first line.
Fair enough.
But then again, if they make the playoffs, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm disappointed. So
yeah, I wouldn't either.
But moving on a little bit, we kind of mentioned this a little bit off camera, and I think that we all have a similar idea. But with how close the playoff race is, if you were to pick one team in the Eastern Conference that would be considered the biggest disappointment for missing the playoffs, who would it be?
Take the floor.
Well, I mean, I think it's the Rangers. I think they made all these moves to make the playoffs. They were the President's Trophy winners of last year. And obviously they had a disappointing start. They made some moves to get better and try to push. They don't have a first-round pick, so there's no excuse for them to miss the playoffs. And they looks like they go on a little hot streak. They win 2 straight games, and then they go right back to their ways where they look really bad, defensive collapsing. Like, I watched that Rangers-Flames game last night. Both teams desperate for points to make a playoffs as the Flames are in a wild card race themselves in the West. They just looked outworked the whole entire game. I think they got outshot like 35-15 or something like that. And it's playoff hockey now. You need to get desperate, and they don't look like they're desperate at all. And I think if they don't make the playoffs, they would be the biggest disappointment. I would also say the Red Wings. The Red Wings been really bad. They were in a playoff spot pretty firmly a week and a half ago, and I think they've lost. I don't know what they are in their last 10 games, but
2-8-0.
yeah. And I did see a stat a couple weeks ago or last week where they are like 2-14 in the March months of the last 2 years. And I remember last year, the Red Wings are in the same position on the wild card bubble, and in March they just let it go. And
Yeah, I remember last year they lost like close to 10 games, if not 10 games in a row or something like that.
It just ruined their chances. So I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts?
I mean, I agree with you about the Rangers just because their expectations were a lot higher than what is being performed out there. I mean, they still have a chance at the playoffs. So do the Red Wings. But I kind of want to hone in on the Red Wings a little more just because they're always around the hunt, but they never seem like, just like we're talking about the Stars, right? They're always in the playoffs, but they can't manage to get to the Western Conference Finals or get out of the Western Conference Finals. This is like the Red Wings where they just can't manage to slip into that wild card seed or, I mean, cracking the Atlantic is really difficult with those top 3 teams. So, I mean, I don't think it's expected that they would be a top 3 team in the Atlantic, but at least they need to surpass that hump and get to that wild card spot, especially since they're healthy now too. Like last year, I guess you had the Dylan Larkin injuries and you had goaltending problems, but now you're fully healthy. You have all your young guns firing at all cylinders, and I think it's time for them to really like put their foot down and make something happen in Detroit. I mean, you look at the franchises that they've had in the past with Lidstrom and Yzerman and all these Zetterberg, all these greats, Datsuk too.
I mean, going off that, since they missed the playoffs in 2017, they haven't been back there. We've said that, but they also came off of a 27, 28 year straight playoff that snapped like a 28 straight playoff drought or streak. So it's like it goes back to what you're saying in terms of what they built, what they had built in the past, and the players that they had. And
I mean, it's an 8-year rebuild at this point.
It's an 8-year rebuild.
You got to show
also,
something for it.
True. I completely agree. And then you look at the Yzer plan, for example. It's like a bunch. How many times in the offseason has it been said, "Oh, the Yzer plan is kind of falling into place. It looks how Stevie Y is kind of planning it out to be." And then we see what we saw last year. Just like we said a couple weeks ago, they went on a 7-8 game winning streak. I think it was a 7-game winning streak. And now they lose 8 of their last 10. Like, that's unacceptable. Those are 16 points. If you're going to lose that many games, I'd rather be 2-5 and 3.
Yeah.
I think anyone would, yeah.
No, I know, but my point is right now with how tight the playoff race is.
Yeah, every point matters here.
That's what I'm saying. So, I feel like hands down the Rangers would be the biggest disappointment if they don't make the playoffs. It goes back to what we said. They were the President's Trophy winners. They had a franchise season last year. The Red Wings, though, I also agree with them. But looking at it right now, I'd even say a team like, I mean, right now they're in a playoff spot, but hypothetically, if a team like Ottawa misses the playoffs, I would even put them in the talk of being the most disappointing team to miss the playoffs. Just because Look at the star power that they have. Look at what they've built. Now's their time to shine. Get in the playoffs. Let's see what Brady Tkachuk can do in the playoffs.
Yeah.
We know what Matthew could do in the playoffs. Like, let's see what Brady could do. Let's see what Shane Pinto could do. Let's see what all these.
Stützle.
Yeah, Sanderson. Like, I want to see all these guys in the playoffs. I want to see what they could do. Not only play meaningful hockey at the end of the year, but I want to see them play meaningful hockey in April.
Yeah, I did want to say something about the Senators because I think the Senators are doing exactly what the Red Wings hoped to do this year, where it was like, I think the Senators are, like, they're not in a playoff spot guaranteed right now, but the way they've been playing recently is making them look like they're going to be that first wild card. They kind of separated themselves a little bit over these past 2 weeks, and they look really good. They fit. Their main problem last year was they were one of the worst teams ever, goaltending-wise. They got Linus Ullmark. He's been a very big add. They got Fabian Zetterlund at the deadline, as well as Dylan Cousins, who've bolstered that forward core. I think the Senators, I really don't think they win round one, especially because I don't think they're going to be in the Atlantic top three. I think they're going to be a wild card spot and end up playing the Caps or
No, they
Panthers.
play the Panthers at this rate. Yeah.
But I think they're going to play the top team of each conference, and I don't see them making it past the first round. But making it to the playoffs is a win in itself if I was a Senators fan.
Think about all the publicity the NHL would get from Matthew and Brady facing off in the first round, too.
Yeah. Those are
That'd be a
probably-
huge news story.
I'm not gonna lie, that didn't even cross my mind.
That'd be such a huge
Yeah.
storyline.
Especially with the Kachucks of the Four Nations being like two of the most popular players in the Four
And
Nations.
Yeah.
and if Bennett is on Matthew's line, Brady fought him
Yeah,
at
and
Four
then-
Nations.
and then-
then you
and
got
then-
Marchand.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Then you have Marshy now.
Like,
Oh,
dude,
man.
that's
I didn't
just
even-
the pest line.
I didn't even put those pieces together, but that's a very good point, Milks. Because imagine Brady Tkachuk finally makes the playoffs and he's got to face his brother. Oh man.
They get 4-0'd.
But going into the Western Conference, we were talking about a tight wild card race in the East. The West, though, has a tight Pacific Division race,
Yeah.
period. I mean, over here, you got three teams battling it out. All three teams are within 5 points. The Golden Knights currently sit atop of the Pacific Division. Behind them is the Oilers. Behind them is the Kings. Respectively, they have 86, 84, and 81 points. This could literally go any which way, and I feel like, I mean, obviously you want to be in either top 1 or 2 seeds just for home ice, going back to what we said before, but I could see a team like Los Angeles picking it up out of nowhere. I mean, they don't lose at home.
Yeah, they're the best home
Yeah,
team this
yeah,
year.
by a landslide. So they keep winning at home. If they kind of transition a little, like just for the last portion of the season, they transition some of their home ice play and bring it on the road, they catch fire. I could see him stealing it.
Yeah.
I could see it being Kings, Golden Knights, Oilers. I could honestly see it going either which way. It's just a matter of who gets hot, who gets cold, and honestly, funny enough, neither of those three teams are playing very good hockey.
Yeah.
Or not above 500, either 500 or worse. Or slightly better, I should say. None of them are worse than 500 in their last 10. So, I feel like there's a big conversation there, because you also see teams like Vegas and the success that they've had since entering the league.
Yeah. I mean, it's
Then-
very interesting when you compare the Pacific and kind of the trend that those teams are on, and then you compare it to how loaded the Central Division is. I mean, again, I hate the way the playoff brackets run, because it looks like it's going to shape up to be Dallas and Avalanche in the first round, which are two
That's-
teams that are
yeah.
supposed to come out of the West. Like I would say two of the 4 teams expected to come out of the
Listen,
West.
I would say all three teams
Yeah, all 3
in the
teams
Central-
in that
in
team
the Central
are expected
are
to make
looked at-
runs.
The top 3 teams in the West.
Yeah, exactly. That's my point. It's like, if you move Vegas, for example, from the Pacific to the Central, they're not in first, they're in third.
Yeah.
Like, that's how stacked the Central is. So, okay, yeah, you might have a battle in the Central, but it's less of a battle for first place, and it's more of a battle for 2 and 3 between Dallas and Colorado. In the Pacific, though, you could see either Vegas or Edmonton lose their home ice to the Kings. But going back to what I was saying before, Vegas has had tremendous success since entering the league, Edmonton's coming off of a season where they made it to Game 7 of the finals, so McDavid and Draisaitl are hungry to get right back there. And then the Kings, well, the Kings are the Kings. Like, all right, they haven't had a stupid amount of success as of late, but they've made certain moves. I was getting rid of Johnny Quick, doing little stuff like that to kind of move their franchise in a new direction.
Luc Dubois as well.
Yeah. But I'm using Johnny Quick more or less. Like, that was your franchise goalie, and the way that they departed was it felt like a backhand to Johnny Quick's face. But then again, got traded to Columbus, had a hell of a ride over there. Was there for like maybe a few hours, and then gets traded to the Golden Knights, wins his third ring. So obviously no complaints, but that's going to be a big talk leading the downstretch of the season, because it goes back to home ice advantage, and all three teams have a chance for that. Just land.
The Kings, if the Kings get home ice advantage, that's a huge advantage for them. As we said, they're
the best home
home team in the NHL by far this year, and I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure the Kings have lost the Oilers the three years in a row. Lost the Oilers in the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure they have been away for most of those games, or have not had home ice advantage. So this last 2 weeks of the season, last 12 games of the season are going to be huge for the Kings. Try to get home ice, and I think they're a sneaky team. Usually we have them going out first round, and I think they're sneaky. They got a lot of young players developing, playing really well right now. Quinton Byfield breaking out this year. The last couple weeks he's looked unbelievable. I'm pretty sure he had a hat trick. Kevin Fiala, Alex Turcotte, they're all getting better.
Kempe too.
Yeah, Adrian Kempe, one of the most underrated players in the league, in my opinion.
100%. They're all developing and becoming into what we expected.
And their goalie tandem is being a lot better than anyone has expected. Darcy Kempfer is playing really well. Also got traded in that Pierre-Luc Dubois trade that ended up being a win-win for both teams, where it kind of looked like a nothing trade in the offseason, and now both players are having a huge impact on both teams.
Yeah, and both teams and players have benefited from the moves, which I feel like as a hockey fan you love to see situations like that. Like you don't like seeing players get moved and struggle, but when you see two players that kind of just mediocre, they're like middle of the pod and not really getting much attention, and all of a sudden they're succeeding, they're a positive fact to their team's success. It's always a good story. And then aside from all that, going over to the Oilers, who you've said have faced the Kings in how many playoffs or first rounds in a row, you got obviously Draisaitl tearing it up per usual. And then, as crazy as it sounds, McDavid per average NHL people is tearing it up. But he's having a down year. A McDavid down year is, can we sit and talk about this for a second? A McDavid down year is him averaging over an assist a game.
You're still probably going to crack 100 points.
He's top 5 in the NHL in scoring, averaging over an assist per game. Yet it's a downside. It's a down year. It's actually kind of crazy. McDavid right now has 63 assists. He's played 62 games. He's obviously not leading the league in anything in terms of goals, assists, or points, which I feel like we're usually used to seeing McDavid do. But there's just something about watching a player like McDavid. For example, yesterday he had a 3-point night. All right, granted, Edmonton won 7-1 against Utah, but still, he's had points in 5 straight, if not more. That's just what I have pulled up right now. And McDavid rarely has not gone. It's been since February 22nd. It's been almost a month since McDavid has played a game and hasn't recorded a point.
Yeah.
So, downside or not, he's still better night and day than half the NHL. With it, he could play right. Yeah, he could play right-handed and be better than half the NHL. And then now think about it. You throw a beast like that into the playoffs yet again, after what he went through last year, and go ahead, tell him not to turn it up another notch. Everyone knows he's got another notch or two. I mean, he had 153 points a couple seasons ago. That's practically unheard of in today's NHL.
Pretty sure that was last year.
He did not have 153 points last year. No, that was a couple years ago.
Was that Kucherov?
No, most Kucherov had was like 130. But
Someone else cracked that 150. I know that's sidetracked.
nope, nobody's cracked 150. McDavid was the first player since Mario to crack 150.
Okay.
Yeah, double check that. I'm curious about that.
I swear Nikita Kucherov cracked it.
No, Nikita Kucherov's career high is like 132.
Okay.
Yeah, let's double check that over there. But while we get that straightened out, going from one Connor to another, Connor Bedard. We haven't really had much of a reason to talk about him or the Blackhawks. There's not much going on there.
Dumpster
Damn.
fire right now.
Yeah. Like they're not the first team eliminated from the playoffs this year. That's the San Jose Sharks, but they're not very far behind. But Connor Bedard, just a week ago, did not have a single 10-minute misconduct in his NHL career. Granted, it's his sophomore season. Now, in the span of 5 days, he had 2 straight back-to-back games with 10-minute misconducts. The first one was for quote-unquote abuse of an official. And then the second one, which was just a scrum where everyone got a misconduct against his hometown team, the Vancouver Canucks. But you could sense the frustration. It's become very evident that Connor Bedard not only loves to win, but he hates losing more than anything else. And I love that mentality, but now Chicago's got to do something and put the pieces around him or give him something to work with, because the kid's not even 20 years old yet, and he's already getting frustrated. At 19 years old, you should be the happiest person in the world to be in the NHL. I mean, look at Macklin Celebrini and Will Smith. All the videos that you see of them, they're enjoying their lives. They might be 32 of 32 in the NHL, but they go to the rink, and they're the 2 happiest people there. I feel like that's very important, and Chicago's not supporting Bedard in the way that he needs to be supported. And those 10 minutes, I mean, granted the fact that a lot of people were confused about his first, or both 10-minute misconducts, that first one, it didn't even seem like he really said much to the ref. I just feel like he caught whoever that ref was that day on an off night. But now you get Spencer Knight. That's going to be your goalie of the future for a little bit. A goalie keeps the puck out of the net. Now you need someone to help Bedard put the puck in the net.
Yeah.
So I don't really know in what direction Chicago's going to go, but man, if I'm Chicago, and especially if I'm Connor Bedard, I'm praying for a top 3 pick this year, another lottery pick, because you're going to need it.
I mean, they'll
You're
probably get one.
You're going to need it.
I agree with what you're saying. I think even with how bad the Sharks are doing, we're looking at the Blackhawks in a completely different manner, because the Blackhawks were expected to be big too, but the Sharks are having fun, and you could tell that just by watching games. They're a fun team, even though they're dead last right now. They're a fun team. They're young. They're scoring goals, and the young guys look like they're having a good time. Meanwhile, you look at the Blackhawks, they're losing. You see people coming out and saying, like when Seth Jones was still there, Seth Jones came out and said, I feel like we've been the same team the last 4 years. We haven't done anything. There's a whole, throughout the whole NHL, there's a complete different mindset between the Blackhawks and the Sharks, even though they're in a similar position, just because it feels like the Sharks' young guys have some sort of support and some sort of direction they're going, and the Blackhawks kind of been in no man's land the last 4 years. They tried picking up some pieces in the offseason to help Bedard, and I think clearly through what we've seen this year, they had been the wrong piece, and I agree at the time. I thought they were the wrong pieces. You added guys like Tyler Bertuzzi, who's not a skill guy at all.
He's like a grinder.
He's just a grinder.
He's a middle bottom 6.
Playing top line with Bedard, that's not guys that you want to fill out your roster with to help a 19-year-old skill guy, develop and be better and not be frustrated. You want to keep your franchise player happy so he stays a long time. So I think they need to have a huge offseason and bring in some right players and some players that are going to keep Bedard happy and not frustrated.
Yeah.
100%. I do want to go back real quick to the Kucherov thing. He actually had 144 points.
144.
And what I think it was the same season him and McDavid both had 100 assists. So that
Okay,
was the
yeah.
milestone mark I was
Yes.
thinking. But he was right there for almost 150.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I mean, when we're talking about the Blackhawks, they don't. The only thing appealing about them is Connor Bedard. I mean, they
Connor
do
Bedard,
have.
will not even argue now, Spencer Knight to an extent.
They do have Spencer Knight now, and Lev Shinov could be their potential franchise defenseman. That
Kind of has to be at this point.
and yeah, I mean, they're stuck in some sort of rut right now where it just seems like this is the off season to make your big moves, spend the money you have, go get a superstar like Mitch Marner if you can to play with Bedard and give him some help, because he's a guy who has the potential to score 40, 50 goals in a season. And right now he's hovering at the 20 mark because he's playing with Ryan Donato and Tyler Bertuzzi, who are guys who should be in the middle of the lineup. And defensively, like, I don't even know who they have anymore, just because it just seems like they're constantly rotating people out, and it's not going to be a recipe to success for your young guys. You need to get young guys to play with young guys. You need to get superstars in there who have already proven that they can put up points and make a difference in the league. Like Mitch Marner is going to be in the free agent market. You have to make a splash at him. Even if you don't get him, you have to at least be a top contender to get him. So you're showing your young superstar that you have high interest in trying to get someone to play with him. And again, it's going to be very interesting to see how the draft lottery goes and where they're going to be. But either way, they have a much longer road to rebuilding than I think the Sharks do, because like you said, they kind of have been meshing the Sharks together with all the young guys at the same time. So they're building chemistry. They're having fun, right? So and just like you said, they have that direction of where they can be. Yeah. Obviously, it's not going to be there for probably a few years, but down the road, you can see them sneaking into the playoffs in maybe 4 or 5 years.
Yeah,
I think even less.
Maybe less. Depends.
Yeah, I was gonna say I kind of said that you could see them being cup contenders in like 5 years. Yeah. Like, we were talking about Spencer Knight and the Blackhawks, but can't forget that San Jose also got Askarov. Askarov's younger and, in my opinion, better than Spencer Knight in terms of what he's proven that he can do. Like, all right, Spencer Knight had whatever he had going on last year, so he has a chance to redeem himself. But until he redeems himself, San Jose has a bright future. Right now, as we've said, Chicago just feels like they're in a standstill, which is not where you want to be, especially with arguably the best U20 player in the world, if not the best, definitely top 2. And the only player that I think is in contention for that is Macklin Celebrini. So there's a tale of two worlds over there. 2 bottom feeders. One's having fun. One's not.
Yeah. Kind of just burning.
Yeah. Yeah. I kind of want to touch up on this. Kind of move past all the actual hockey talk, NHL and stuff like that. And I kind of want to get into a little how now that NHL, Gary Bettman has said that they might be switching their direction on the 2026 All-Star Game, which is supposed to be held at UBS Arena. Gary Bettman has made it clear that they've kind of elevated the bar for pretty much every league's All-Star Game, and he's like, now we have to be the first people to kind of follow our footsteps and continue the trend that we started, and a traditional All-Star Game just might not be it anymore. He said whatever we have going on, it'll almost certainly still be at UBS Arena because they promised the Islanders that event, and the Islanders are kind of using that event to pay for a lot of things and kind of get certain things done that they need to get done. It's obviously a big profit thing. But over here, I have quoted from an article that I read earlier this morning. It says NHL players will participate in the 2026 Milano Olympics. We knew that, which is huge. The NHL and NHLPA will bring back the World Cup of Hockey in February 2028. And the plan is to have a best-on-best international tournament every 2 years. I love the sound of that. Best-on-best every 2 years is the most ideal situation, I feel like, for us hockey fans. After going from 2016 to pretty much this year without anything. But the question that I pose is, what does this mean for events such as the All-Star Game? Are they going to switch up what an All-Star Game really consists of? Or are they just going to cut it out altogether and kind of make it a different event? Which is obviously what they're trying to figure out now. But I kind of just want to touch up on that and see what your guys' thoughts is on that. Because we grew up with All-Star Games. I grew up loving the All-Star Game. It kind of got a little boring after a certain point. But now there's a tree with branches going every which way.
I think this isn't just an NHL issue, as you talked about. Like, other leagues are following in part from what the NHL did with the Four Nations. But I remember growing up as kids, we loved the All-Star Game. Especially the All-Star Skills Competition. I remember watching Zdeno Chara and Shea Weber go at it in the hardest slap shot competition, going 103 to 104 mile per hour slap shots, and being like, how the hell are these guys shooting the puck that hard? And now it's kind of like died out. Like, I think that happened with all sports, where like a lot of commissioners are struggling to find ways to make All-Star Games competitive and interesting at the same time.
Yeah, it's very repetitive.
These NHL players are like, they come to these games as like a break. Obviously, they don't want to get hurt. They don't want to give it their all, but fans still want to see some sort of competitiveness and some sort of something new, if that makes sense. And I think that's why the Four Nations was such a hit that it was, because hockey fans haven't seen that in almost 10 years.
Yeah, and I mean, kind of branching off of that, aside from the fact that hockey fans were as excited as they were for Four Nations, that was going on during the NBA All-Star Game. And quite honestly, I had no idea that the NBA All-Star Game was even going on during the Four Nations. Yeah. I don't know about you guys, but I feel like that speaks volumes just looking at hockey and basketball and the size of which you have like the fan bases of both leagues. The NBA eats the NHL. And the fact that you had most people following the Four Nations and I didn't even know that the NBA All-Star Game was going on, I feel like that speaks a lot of volumes. So I kind of like the direction that Gary Bettman is taking this in. And I like that he's like, hey, we're not completely eliminating it out, or we're not cutting the idea out, but it's not a guarantee that it once was.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you look in the last 10 years about how All-Star games or Pro Bowls in football, like, we all know the famous hit of Sean Taylor just annihilating a punter in the Pro Bowl. Like, that was like fun to watch because everyone was playing so high intensity. And, you know, now players, I don't want to say in a bad light, but it's like they're having too much fun where they just don't really care. Like, they don't care about the accolades. Yeah. Like, no one cares about winning the All-Star Game MVP and for the NHL. Like, it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't hold any significance.
I want to, not to cut you off, but I want to branch off that real quick. Look at Nikita Kucherov a couple All-Star games ago. All the backlash he was getting because during the skills competition, he was lollygagging around. He was messing around. He wasn't trying. And during those skills competitions, you want to see the best players in the world compete. Like, that's what I'm saying. It's like it looked like he didn't care. And that's the opposite of what fans look for in those competitions. But Milks, continue what you were saying. I didn't mean to cut you off.
I mean, so for one thing, I obviously would love the idea of doing the Four Nations every year, but I don't necessarily see it being a realistic option.
No.
So instead, what I would almost propose being a commissioner is to make these all-star events more fan interactive. Get the fans close to the players. Get some way where the fans can do something with the players, so that way now the fans are involved. They're not just sitting there watching you, I don't know, be lackadaisical, stick handling the puck, shooting it around. Get the fans some way involved in the events, and I think it'll really drive sales. It'll drive the amount of people who want to go to these events. Like, I don't know. I mean, I don't personally go to the All-Star games, but I bet if you compared the attendance ratings from last year compared to when the All-Star games had significant meaning, say 10 years ago, I bet the attendance ratings are way down. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know what Bettman would be able to do with fan interaction, but I think if you can't do a Four Nations type thing, you got to do something that gets the fans with the players in some sense.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything that you're saying. I think that the NHL needs to figure something out in terms of how to better the All-Star game, whether it's a legitimate All-Star game or if they switch it over to some other structure. But the one thing I will say is I think that the Four Nations or some kind of best-on-best tournament every single year is out of the question. I feel like every 2 years that's what they're set on, and I'm more than okay with that because every 2 years you get either a Four Nations or you get an Olympics. If you do it every year, I feel like it loses its meaning. It's almost as if the Olympics were every year.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But kind of going off that now, I feel like on that off year, you should have something like an All-Star game. But the way that the All-Star game is structured, I like the fan interaction idea that you had. I didn't want to put you on the spot and ask you what you would do if you were in that position because, quite honestly, I was trying to think about it, and I don't necessarily know what I would do. But that's something for them to figure out or whatever. It's just an idea, which I liked. But they should have some kind of All-Star game, something, whether it's you pick, I don't know, like whether they go back to drafting like the All-Star teams rather than East-West. Like everyone remembers Alex Ovechkin. Yeah, I want to be the last player picked. I need a new car. It's like, buddy, you're a millionaire. You don't need a new car. You go get yourself a new car. But at the end of the day, that's what people enjoyed it for. That's what people looked forward to. So whether it's go back to an old style of All-Star games or kind of mess around and do something different, like if you were to ask me to craft up a Four Nations idea before Four Nations was mentioned, it would not be anything of what it was. So I don't know what they're thinking of. I don't know what they could come up with, but if they somehow, some way shift it in a positive light, I feel like a best on best every 2 years with the off year being an All-Star game type of situation, that would be the ideal perfect situation for the NHL. And I feel like a lot of different leagues would kind of follow that as well.
I think we're all in agreement that we still want to see All-Star games, but we just they need to come up with some new ideas and new tweaks
you just need increased intensity.
Yes. That's more in the players just to.
No, and that's what it comes down to. Like, I don't even know if this is allowed or if this even makes it reasonable because I feel like some players would actually opt out of All-Star games if this was the case. But it's more or less like if you go there and you pull some, I don't know, Nikita Kucherov a couple years ago just not trying pretty much. Or who was it this year? It was Wembanyama and Chris Paul during the NBA All-Star game where they were trying to find a loophole to win the skills competition.
What it was,
but it's just like, all right, it might be funny, but it's like these people paid a whole lot of money. It's like one of my favorite parts about going to NHL games or just any game in general is watching the warm-ups. That might just be me. I might be weird to do that, but I love plotting myself right by the red line and just looking at the skill that these players kind of just show off for free in warm-ups. And that's just them getting ready for an actual game. Half the stuff that they do, they don't actually do within the 60 minutes of a hockey game. But the ability that they have to do those things and how cleanly they do them and just how effortlessly it is, I feel like that's what people look for in All-Star games. So I think it's going to be a real interesting process moving forward, especially with what has come out with the All-Star game of next year. So, that's just something, I guess, to think about and keep an eye out for. Because, like we said, the Four Nations set a very high standard. And I feel like almost every single other professional league, not just the NHL, has to follow that kind of, not structure, but they'll have to shift a certain way in terms of the All-Star game. But onto something else that the Islanders, the NHL does that I really like is the Global Series. They just announced that the Penguins and the Predators are going to be in Sweden next November for their Global Series in Stockholm. And I feel like every league does play international games. Look at what the MLB is doing right now with the Japanese series or the Japan series, whatever they're calling it.
It's called Tokyo, actually. But
Yeah.
It's in Japan.
Yeah, so it's like little stuff like that increases the viewership of the game. It brings the NHL to different light. Okay, yeah, all these kids in Sweden, at least if you're a hockey fan, you know what the NHL is. They don't live under rocks. but it's different to watch a game on TV in a different time zone, and it's different to go there. And, oh my God, that's Eric Carlson. That's Forsberg. Those are the guys that grew up on the same soil as me and are now making millions in the NHL.
Yeah.
That's what I want to do. So it's more or less the Global Series brings a really bright light to hockey in different places. Look at the Devils playing against Nico Hischier's old team in Switzerland. That was a real cool experience. Like when I think it was SC Berlin or something that Nico Hischier played for. I'm not entirely sure, but a non-NHL team playing an NHL team, like that's a cool mix of two worlds. Something that I'd love to see more of, because it just expands the game. It doesn't all have to be within 32 teams. Like you could expand out occasionally and kind of mess around. So I feel like the Global Series is a real good step in the right direction, or something that they do consistently too.
Yeah. They've been doing it. I don't know how long they have been doing. I'm pretty sure this year they did a couple games in Czech.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, the preseason games between the Devils and the Sabres.
Yeah, like they should do more of, which I love. I love bringing in more of these European markets to NHL. Obviously, it brings more viewers, and it gets a lot of these younger generations in other countries, like lesser known countries or lesser represented countries in the NHL, like Sweden, Finland, Czech. We've seen an influx of amazing players over the last couple of years just because of how good they've been in World Juniors, for example. I remember when, I think it was Mika Zibanejad who scored the game-winning goal for Sweden in the World Juniors, and ever since then we've seen a massive influx of more Swedish players, and very good Swedish players at that, coming into the NHL, and I think these Global Series are just going to help that even more. Just bring in more of these great players from other countries.
I mean, anything that's going to help promote the game and raise eyebrows to the game, I think should absolutely be done. I mean, not to mention, like, even the Stadium Series that the NHL does, obviously the Winter Classic every year, just to bring more attention. If Bettman really wanted to, maybe you do a Stadium Series game in Norway, Sweden, one of these European countries. I mean, bring eyes to the game. I know a lot of people watch that Stadium Series game because it was actually a pretty good game. But like overall, I'm in support of anything that's gonna help to grow the game. I think it provides cool opportunities for the players. It provides cool opportunities for these fans in Europe or wherever they decide to host these events. So, again, it's all about promoting the game and just putting it in a better place for the years coming.
Yeah, and then kind of talking about the expansion and getting the name of the game out there. I mentioned how the Devils played against a non-NHL team, whatever. Something that I want to touch up on, which, once again, this is a hockey podcast. We don't get political on here, so this has nothing to do with politics. But Trump and Putin had a conversation for whatever reason, and something that was brought up by Trump is a potential NHL versus KHL series. Players from the NHL and then players from Russia's league kind of going about it. The NHL refused to comment on the situation because they didn't have any prior knowledge before they heard it themselves from whatever news source. But that's just an idea that was mentioned. It goes back to, there's so much that we could do that you can't think of everything. I would never think of an NHL KHL series or whatever just to kind of clash the two worlds. I feel like it's always been the NHL and the KHL, the top two leagues in the world in terms of hockey, and they stay in their own respective countries. Like, what would you guys think if something like that came about?
I mean, again, I'm in full support of anything that's going to promote opportunities for the game of hockey. I don't know much about the KHL, but it does create some really, really high-level talent, and I mean, it'd be cool to watch. I don't know much about the KHL, so being able to watch a game like that would be fun. I'm not going to be opposed to anything that, as long I feel like the games just can't be in Russia. That would probably be like the main stipulation, but like besides that, I don't,
And I feel like Russians would say the same thing.
I don't know. Maybe you find
Yeah.
a neutral site in
See-
Germany.
I don't think. See, I'm confused on. Or I like the idea. Obviously, I love the idea. I don't know how or what NHLers would be a part of an NHL versus KHL series. Would they bring in the top players again? If you bring in the top NHLers versus the top
I don't-
KHLers,
yeah.
we're gonna, like.
I don't know
essentially
if that would be
NHL
fair.
NHL will kill the KHL.
Yeah.
That's what I'm wondering about. It's like, are the NHL gonna bring in?
Maybe you do like a Young Guns
Yeah,
team or
See,
something.
but that's what I was thinking too, Dozer. Like to be complete, like, what would you do? Would you pick like the top Russian players in the NHL,
Yeah, and put them on KHL, like.
or like
Mm.
no? See, but that's what I'm saying. Like you almost like that's the thing. It's like the NHL team can't be full of Russians to play a
Yeah.
Russian team. Like I feel like best on best NHL, best KHL, we have them smoked.
Yeah.
But then, for example, like that U23 option, like that's not terrible, But then it's like, then you look at it, and it's like, oh, the NHL is sending their top U23 guys, and they're expecting the KHL guys to just send a full-fledged. Like they might take that as disrespect.
Well, you could also do like if you have former KHL players in the NHL that you would allow them to go back to the play for that KHL. Like if you had Michkov, like you could permit him to play for the KHL team in that game or something.
Yeah. See, like that's
Because that
just-
would bolster
yeah.
their lineup a little bit.
Yeah. No, I don't know. I feel like there's
It's just an
a
interesting concept that
yeah.
we would be down for. Just we don't know the information on, and like honestly, if we just hear NHL versus KHL, we all think the worst. We all think NHL is gonna smoke the KHL. So obviously, if that's a real thing that does come about, like there's gonna be some sort of limitations. I think, or I would assume.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I find it I kind of wish that, I'm not surprised, but I kind of wish that the NHL did comment on that a little bit. I have something to say because that's a bold little something to say if you're Trump, Putin, whoever kind of released that. I just saw that.
Yeah.
I saw that on social media and did a little bit more research on it prior to this. So, like, there still hasn't been anything. Like, this isn't even in the conversation for anything. But just the idea, like we said, is such a cool concept that could go in so many different directions that I'd be more than willing to see what comes out of it if it really does become a reality. But with all that being said, we have a very good finishing line or whatever, good race to the finish line for both the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference. We have the Great Chase, which is going down to the wire. I feel like everyone thinks there's a chance for it to happen this year, but nobody really knows what's going on. You got young players having fun like Celebrini and Smith, and then you got other guys like Bedsy getting back-to-back 10-minute misconducts. And then you have a whole lot of question marks from the All-Star game to, I guess,
Just
whatever.
plans
Yeah.
for the NHL.
Yeah, future plans for the NHL, and I feel like that could also be ditto to every other.
Yeah, I was gonna say
major
all other
league sports.
leagues for whatever their
Yeah,
NHL or All-Star events will be.
Yeah, so a lot to be excited for the rest of the season and in the future in terms of the NHL. But I just want to quickly touch up on our D1 teams. Our women's Division I team was in Ithaca, New York last time we spoke. Last week's podcast, they were playing Minnesota Duluth in the first round of the NCAA tournament. Unfortunately, they lost 6-1. They held their own. They were down 2-0. For the majority of the second period, they kind of fell apart in the last 20, 30 seconds of that second period. And what I've told everyone, being down 2 goals heading into the third and being down 4, 2 very different situations. So, great season for them.
Yeah.
History made one way or another. First time they ever made the tournament, which is huge. It's a step in the right direction. Now it's just do it again next year. In terms of the men got swept by Bentley. They played a solid first period last Friday. Bentley
Tough
came
matchup.
came out with a good push. Like we said, they were 1-2 in the regular season. All 3 games, very close, tight-knit games. In the semifinals, like we said, playoff hockey is not like regular season hockey. Bentley got the best of us. It's a semifinal exit, but hey, it's a step in the right direction for that D1 team as well. They got bounced in the first round the last couple of years. So, you know what? They won a playoff series. They know what it takes. Next year, move forward. And then slowly you work your way up to the NCAA tournament when that opportunity arrives.
Definitely cool to see our teams improving in the right direction instead of kind of like I feel like when we were freshmen, sophomore, juniors, they were stuck at this same tier of
Mediocrity.
level of play.
Yeah.
And now we're finally starting to see them elevate.
Yeah.
And the games are pretty electric too.
Yeah,
like
the games were fun, and this year, compared to the other years, like even though the men's team only made it past one round, we actually were looking forward to go to the games. We actually had something to look for. Opposed to the last couple of years, we didn't we kind of expected them to get bounced in the first round, bounced in the second round. This year, we expected they had both teams very good regular seasons. We're both top 2 in their respective conference, and you know the girls ended up winning their conference. Congrats to them, losing in the March or not March Madness in the NCAA tournament.
nothing to hang your head about.
Nothing to hang your head about. Good on them. And the men's winning a playoff series after losing first round the last 2 years, it's only up from here, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I would say like going into playoffs, we almost had expectations that like, wow, this team might be able to make it to the tournament now. Now, granted, they would probably be in the same situation as the women's, playing a very high caliber level D1 team. But it would still be cool.
If our men's team made the tournament, they'd be playing like a BC.
Yeah.
Which, like we said, we've watched our team play BC in the opener at Martiri our sophomore year, but like we've said, that was a completely different BC team than we have right now.
Yeah.
So I feel like both teams are heading in the right direction, like we said. Huge congrats to the women's on making the tournament, winning their conference, on just an incredible season overall. To the men's, another huge congratulations. Steps in the right direction. Only goes up from here. I'm very, very happy to have gotten to watch 4 seasons of these unbelievable athletes. And honestly, with the new arena and kind of everything that they have going for them, I expect nothing but upward climb for both our teams. So on to next season. Let's see what next season holds. But that's all the time we have for the 5th episode of 3 Gyms Talk Hockey. We'll be back in the studio next week with hopefully a lot more exciting hockey to talk about. Once again, I'm your host, Solon Mijas, alongside Michael Cardoza and Matt Milko. See you guys next episode.
Peace.